car. Now, hands where I can see them. You failed to signal that lane change back there.
I signaled. The light's on the video if you check.
Ma'am, don't get mouthy. Just because look, just step over here.
Just because I'm what? Black, driving a nice car? I'm going to keep this professional. Here's my identification. Assistant U.S. Attorney, I prosecute civil rights cases. Do you understand?
Officer Derek Holloway pulled over a black woman on Interstate 95 for a lane change violation that never happened. A lie his own dash cam would later expose. Within 30 seconds of approaching her window, he was already threatening to impound her vehicle and have her arrested if she didn't stop questioning his authority. He saw her expensive car, her calm demeanor, her refusal to be intimidated, and it enraged him. So he did what he'd done 17 times before to drivers who looked like her. What he didn't know was that Monica Rashad wasn't just any driver. She was the federal prosecutor who'd spent 4 years sending cops like him to prison. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to hit the like button for more stories you don't want to miss. Monica Rashad, 42 years old, had spent the morning in federal court in Miami presenting evidence in a civil rights case against 3 officers from a neighboring county. As an assistant U.S. attorney specializing in police misconduct and constitutional violations, she'd built her reputation on meticulous case preparation and an unflinching commitment to accountability. Her record spoke for itself. 14 successful prosecutions, millions in settlements for victims, and a growing list of departments now operating under federal consent decrees because of her work. She was driving north on I-95 in her late model Mercedes, mentally reviewing the testimony she'd just delivered, when she noticed the patrol car's lights in her rearview mirror. She signaled and pulled over immediately onto the shoulder, her hands visible on the steering wheel. Habits born from a lifetime of knowing that even her education, her position, her perfect driving record meant nothing in moments like these. Through her side mirror, she watched Officer Holloway emerge from his vehicle, the humid Florida heat already making his uniform stick to his back, his gait deliberate, his expression already set in that particular mask of authority she'd seen too many times in courtroom videos. He was 47, a 12-year veteran of the Broward County Sheriff's Office, and his personnel file, though Monica didn't know it yet, read like a warning sign everyone had chosen to ignore. Excessive force complaints, accusations of racial profiling, angry outbursts during routine stops. All of it documented. All of it dismissed by supervisors who valued loyalty over accountability. License and registration, Holloway barked before she could even greet him, his tone making it clear this wasn't a conversation, but a command. Monica reached slowly for her glove compartment, her movements careful, and announced, "Officer, may I ask why you pulled me over?" His jaw tightened at the question. "You failed to signal that lane change about a mile back. License and registration. Now." Monica's legal mind processed this immediately. She had absolutely signaled, had been hyper-aware of her driving precisely because she knew what it meant to be a black woman in an expensive car on this stretch of highway. But she kept her voice measured, professional. "I believe I did signal, officer. My turn signal is functioning properly. Are you arguing with me?" Holloway's hand moved to rest on his belt, closer to his weapon than necessary. "Because if you want to make this difficult, we can make this very difficult. Step out of the vehicle." "Officer, I'm simply..." "Step out of the vehicle." Each word came out like a hammer strike. "Or I can call for backup, and we can do this the hard way. Your choice." Monica felt the familiar burn of injustice rising in her chest. The same feeling she carried into courtrooms on behalf of people who'd experienced exactly this. She could see it in his eyes. He'd already decided who she was, what she represented, and nothing she said would matter because he wasn't seeing her. He was seeing a stereotype he needed to dominate. His hand hadn't left his belt. His posture screamed aggression, looking for an excuse. Behind them, traffic rushed past on the interstate. Dozens of witnesses who wouldn't stop, wouldn't intervene, wouldn't even remember seeing this. The Florida sun beat down mercilessly as Holloway stepped closer to her door, his shadow falling across her. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Is this your vehicle? Where are you coming from? You got anything illegal in there I should know about? The questions weren't about her traffic violation, real or imagined. They were about humiliation, about reminding her of her place, about exercising power, because he could. Monica had seen this script play out in 100 body camera videos, had listened to 100 similar victims describe this exact escalation, and now she was living it. Her phone sat in the cup holder, her briefcase in the passenger seat filled with case files about officers who'd done precisely what Holloway was doing right now. Officer, I'm going to comply with your requests, but I want to be clear that I signaled that lane change, and I don't believe there's probable cause for this stop. Her voice remained steady, her legal training taking over, even as her heart raced. Holloway's face darkened. Oh, you're a lawyer now? That's cute. Let me tell you what I believe. I believe you're being uncooperative, and that gives me all the cause I need to search this vehicle top to bottom. So unless you want me to call K9 unit out here, I suggest you adjust your attitude real quick. What Officer Derek Holloway didn't realize as he threatened and postured and let his bias guide every word was that his body camera was creating an evidence file that Monica Rashad would recognize instantly. Not as a victim, but as a prosecutor who knew exactly what federal crimes looked like when they were being committed. And the most dangerous thing he'd done wasn't pulling her over on a lie. It was assuming she was powerless to do anything about it. Monica stood beside her Mercedes with her hands visible, the Florida heat beating down on the shoulder of Interstate 95 as Officer Holloway circled her like she was a criminal instead of a citizen he was sworn to protect. He had already ordered her out, had already made it clear this wasn't about a turn signal anymore, and now he was looking for his next move in a script he'd played out too many times before. Put your hands on the hood, he ordered, positioning himself behind her. Monica complied, feeling the hot metal of her car against her palms, feeling the weight of every client she'd ever represented who had described this exact humiliation. Her briefcase sat in plain view on her passenger seat, the words U.S. Attorney's Office. Southern District of Florida stamped clearly on the leather, but Holloway hadn't looked closely enough to notice. A silver SUV slowed down as it passed them, the driver's face turning to look at what was happening. Holloway waved them on aggressively. He didn't want witnesses to whatever he thought was about to happen here. But the afternoon traffic kept flowing, and more drivers were starting to notice a well-dressed black woman being treated like a criminal by an officer whose body language screamed hostility. He started asking questions rapid fire, his tone designed to overwhelm and confuse. Monica answered each question calmly and directly, her prosecutor's training keeping her focused even as her anger built. She wasn't nervous. She was controlled. There was a difference, and officers like Holloway never seemed to understand that. A white pickup truck pulled onto the shoulder about 50 yards ahead of them, hazard lights blinking. An older white man got out, his phone already in his hand, pointed in their direction. "Everything okay back there?" he called out. Holloway spun around, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. "Mind your business and keep moving," he shouted back. The man didn't move. He just stood there, phone raised, recording. Monica felt a small measure of relief knowing that someone was documenting this besides Holloway's body camera. Holloway turned back to Monica, his jaw working with barely contained anger. "I'm going to search your vehicle for contraband. You have anything in there you want to tell me about? Drugs, weapons, anything illegal?" "Officer, I don't consent to a search," Monica said clearly, making sure her words would be picked up on his body camera. "You pulled me over for an alleged failure to signal. That doesn't give you probable cause to search my vehicle." Holloway's face went red. Nobody talked to him like that. You could see it in his expression. Nobody quoted law at him. Nobody stayed this calm when he was trying to intimidate them. "I don't need your consent. I've got reasonable suspicion that you're involved in criminal activity." "Based on what?" Monica's voice remained steady. Professional. The same tone she used in federal court when she was dismantling a defense attorney's argument. "What specific articulable facts have you observed that would lead a reasonable officer to suspect criminal activity?" The question hung in the humid air between them. Holloway stared at her, and for the first time since this stop began, something shifted in his expression. The way she spoke, the legal terminology, the complete lack of fear in her voice despite his threats. A second car had pulled over now, another witness with a phone out, and a third was slowing down. This wasn't going the way these stops usually went for him. "Who are you?" he asked, the aggression in his voice now mixed with something else, uncertainty. Monica reached slowly into her jacket pocket, her movements deliberate, and announced, "I'm reaching for my credentials now, officer." She pulled out her federal identification and held it up where he could see it clearly. "My name is Monica Rashad. I'm an assistant United States attorney for the Southern District of Florida." The color drained from Holloway's face as he read her credentials. His eyes went wide, then darted to his body camera, then back to her face, then to the witnesses now recording from their vehicles. You could actually see the moment the reality of what he'd done hit him. He'd fabricated a traffic stop. He'd escalated to threats and intimidation. He'd attempted an illegal search. And he'd done all of it to a federal prosecutor who specialized in civil rights violations. You should have identified yourself," he stammered, stepping back from her car. Monica's expression didn't change. "I don't need to identify my profession during a traffic stop, officer. I'm a citizen like anyone else. The question is, would you have treated me differently if I'd told you what I do for a living? Because if the answer is yes, then we have a serious problem with how you treat everyone else." Holloway opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. No words came out. Behind him, traffic continued to flow on I-95, but 3 vehicles sat on the shoulder now. 3 witnesses recording every second of an officer realizing he just ended his own career. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for his radio, and Monica knew exactly what was coming next. The backup he called for was about to arrive and find something he definitely didn't want them to see. The backup unit arrived within 6 minutes. A younger officer named Martinez stepping out of his patrol car and immediately sensing that something had gone terribly wrong. Holloway was sweating more than the Florida heat could account for, his usual swagger completely gone, replaced by the jerky movements of a man watching his world collapse in real time. Monica stood calmly by her Mercedes, her federal credentials still in her hand, while 3 civilian vehicles remained parked on the shoulder with their phones still recording every second. Martinez approached cautiously, his eyes moving between Holloway's pale face and Monica's composed demeanor. "What's the situation here, Derek?" he asked, but Holloway seemed incapable of forming words. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. So Monica answered instead, her voice cutting through the traffic noise with prosecutorial precision. "Officer Martinez, my name is Assistant U.S. Attorney Monica Rashad. Your colleague pulled me over, claiming I failed to signal a lane change, which is false. When I questioned the validity of the stop, he ordered me out of my vehicle, threatened to impound it, suggested I was involved in criminal activity, and attempted to conduct an illegal search without probable cause or consent. All of this is documented on his body camera and by multiple civilian witnesses." She gestured to the cars on the shoulder, their occupants still filming. "I need you to contact your supervisor immediately, because what happened here today isn't just misconduct. It's a federal civil rights violation." Martinez's face went white. He looked at Holloway, waiting for a denial, an explanation, anything that would make this less catastrophic than it sounded. But Holloway just stood there, his hand still trembling near his radio. I didn't know she was," he started, then seemed to realize that finishing that sentence would only make things worse. "Didn't know I was what?" Monica's voice turned to ice. "Didn't know I was a federal prosecutor. So if I had been a waitress, a teacher, a nurse, someone without power or legal knowledge, this would have been acceptable? Is that what you're saying, Officer Holloway?" The question landed like a physical blow. Holloway actually flinched. Martinez pulled out his own radio, his voice shaky as he called for a supervisor. Sergeant Torres, I need you at my location on I-95 northbound. Mile marker 47. It's urgent. Monica turned her attention to Martinez, and there was something in her gaze that made the younger officer understand exactly how serious this was. How many complaints has Officer Holloway received for this type of behavior? She asked. It wasn't really a question. It was a prosecutor laying groundwork. Because in my experience, officers don't escalate this quickly, don't threaten illegal searches this confidently, unless they've done it before without consequences. Martinez shifted uncomfortably. He knew the answer. Everyone at the department knew about Holloway's complaints, but saying it out loud to a federal prosecutor was different. His silence was answer enough. Monica nodded slowly, her legal mind already assembling the pattern that would destroy not just Holloway, but the supervisors who'd protected him. A third patrol car arrived, this one carrying Sergeant Torres, a 20-year veteran whose expression shifted from irritation at being called out to horror as Martinez quickly briefed him. Torres approached Monica with his hands visible, his voice carefully respectful. Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Torres. I apologize for this situation. If you could just... No. Monica's voice cut him off. We're not doing this. You're not going to smooth this over. Suggest I go on my way. Promise an internal review that goes nowhere. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to secure Officer Holloway's body camera footage right now. You're going to take statements from those witnesses. She pointed at the 3 cars still recording. You're going to document every single thing that happened here, because tomorrow morning, I'm filing a formal complaint with the FBI's Civil Rights Division, and I'm recommending a full pattern and practice investigation into your department. Torres opened his mouth to respond, but Monica wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone and made a call, putting it on speaker. It rang twice before a man's voice answered. Rashad, what's wrong? Agent Chin, I need the Miami field office to open a civil rights investigation. I was just subjected to a pretextual stop, harassment, threats, and attempted illegal search by a Broward County Sheriff's deputy on I-95. Multiple witnesses, body camera footage, the works. The officer fabricated probable cause and escalated to constitutional violations within minutes. There was a pause on the other end. Then Agent Chen's voice came back harder. Are you safe right now? I'm safe. I have my credentials out and backup units are here. But Chen, this wasn't amateur hour. This officer has done this before. I can see it in how comfortable he was violating my rights. We need to pull every stop he's made in the past 2 years. Every complaint that's been filed and buried. Torres actually took a step back, the full weight of federal attention crashing down on him. This wasn't going away. This wasn't going to be handled internally. A United States attorney was standing on the side of I-95 directing an FBI agent to tear apart his department, and there was nothing he could say to stop it. Holloway finally found his voice, and what came out was desperate and pathetic. I was just doing my job. You were driving an expensive car. I had reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion of what? Monica turned on him, and her anger was cold and controlled and absolutely devastating. Reasonable suspicion that a black woman couldn't afford the car she was driving? Reasonable suspicion based on the color of my skin? Say it, Officer Holloway. Tell these witnesses and that body camera exactly what your reasonable suspicion was based on. Holloway's mouth worked, but nothing came out. He knew any answer would bury him. The truth would bury him. A lie would bury him. His silence was burying him. Around them, the witnesses kept recording, and in the distance, more cars were slowing down to see what was happening. Monica ended her call with Agent Chen and turned back to Sergeant Torres. Your officer made a choice today, she said, her voice carrying across the shoulder of the highway. He saw me and made assumptions. He fabricated a violation to justify a stop. He escalated to intimidation when I dared to question him. And he threatened my constitutional rights because he thought I was powerless to stop him. The only thing he regrets right now is that he was wrong about who I am. But he shouldn't have to know someone's profession before treating them with basic dignity and respect. She picked up her briefcase from the passenger seat, the federal seal visible to everyone present. I'm leaving now. Sergeant Torres, you have my contact information on file at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Make sure that body camera footage is preserved. If it disappears, if it's corrupted, if anything happens to it, I will personally ensure that this department faces obstruction charges on top of everything else. Monica got back into her Mercedes, started the engine, and pulled carefully back onto I-95, using her turn signal exactly as she had before Holloway decided to destroy his career. In her rearview mirror, she could see Holloway standing on the shoulder, his supervisor already on the phone, probably calling their union lawyer. The witnesses were still there, still recording, and by tonight, their videos would be all over social media. Officer Derek Holloway had pulled over the wrong woman on the wrong day. And unlike the 17 other people who'd complained about him before, this time there would be no burying the evidence. This time, everyone would see exactly who he was. 3 months after that traffic stop on Interstate 95, Officer Derek Holloway's career was over. The body camera footage went viral within 48 hours, racking up millions of views across every social media platform. The witnesses who had pulled over that day gave statements to the FBI, their phone recordings providing additional angles that showed Holloway's aggression and Monica's composed professionalism. There was no ambiguity, no room for alternative interpretations. The evidence was overwhelming. The FBI's investigation into the Broward County Sheriff's Office revealed what Monica had suspected from the beginning. Holloway wasn't an isolated case. He was a symptom of a department that had systematically ignored complaints, protected problem officers, and allowed racial profiling to become standard practice. His personnel file showed 17 prior complaints over 12 years, all dismissed or downgraded by supervisors who valued loyalty over accountability. Holloway was terminated within 2 weeks of the incident. He faced federal criminal charges for deprivation of rights under color of law, a crime carrying up to 10 years in prison. Sergeant Torres, who had overseen Holloway's unit and dismissed multiple complaints against him, was demoted and transferred. 2 other supervisors took early retirement rather than face disciplinary hearings. But Monica knew that individual accountability wasn't enough. She used her position and her personal experience to push for a consent decree that would place the entire Broward County Sheriff's Office under federal oversight. The decree mandated comprehensive anti-bias training, complete overhaul of complaint procedures, installation of early warning systems to identify problem officers, and regular auditing of traffic stops for evidence of racial profiling. The 3 civilians who had pulled over to record that day were invited to a community forum where Monica spoke about the importance of witnesses in civil rights cases. "You didn't have to stop," she told them. "You didn't have to pull out your phones and record. But you did, and your courage gave power to accountability." Monica went back to her office at the U.S. Attorney's Building in Miami, back to prosecuting cases on behalf of people who didn't have federal credentials to protect them. But something had shifted. She understood on a visceral level what her clients experienced: the helplessness of being seen as guilty because of your skin color, the rage of being denied dignity by someone sworn to protect you. It made her a better prosecutor, sharper and more determined. 6 months after the traffic stop, she received a letter from a young black woman who had been pulled over by Holloway 2 years earlier. The woman had filed a complaint that went nowhere, had been told she was overreacting, had eventually given up seeking justice. "Thank you," the letter said. "Thank you for having the power to make them listen. And thank you for using it for all of us who they ignored." Monica kept that letter in her desk drawer. It reminded her why the work mattered. Officer Derek Holloway had made a choice that day on Interstate 95. He had assumed Monica was powerless. He was wrong. And because he was wrong, 17 other victims finally got the justice they deserved. The system hadn't protected them. But this time, it didn't protect him either. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Real change happens when we stop looking away. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to follow for more stories that matter.